Good morning. Good morning. It is Wednesday, November 20th, and the mandate that Donald Trump and the entire Republican federal Congress received from the American people centered really, I think, on not only a repudiation and total rejection of the left and their insanity, and we'll get to men are men and women are women in just a moment, but a large part of that as well is border security. And according to Blaze Media, a conflict is brewing within the House GOP conference between moderates and mass deportation hardliners. Now, of course, President Trump and also his border czar Tom Homan have been very clear that they are going to even utilize the military to help execute mass deportations. And for a lot of conservatives, myself included, I think this is a very good thing. We need to get rid of not just the criminals, but anyone who is here illegally should not just have amnesty perpetually and just be able to be here illegally. If you're here illegally, no, you need to leave the country and, come back in a legal way or figure it out legally. But let's talk to one of the mass deportation hardliners and someone who probably agrees with me, which is a Representative Chip Roy from the great state of Texas. So, Chip, why are some in the Republican conference kind of wavering on this? I mean, is this just pressure from the leftist media because they're worried about optics?
Well, good morning, Jenna. I'm glad to be on the show. Look, I think this is pretty simple. It's more of the same. President Trump was ushered in with a mandate, as were the Republicans in the House and the Senate along with him. And significantly, I might point out that on the front of the RNC building, there were great big signs on the front of it saying mass deportation. What that is a response to the blatant violation of the law, the violation of our sovereignty and the endangerment of the American people, as you know, as we've talked about with fentanyl poisoning and the death of, thousands of Americans at the hands of criminal aliens dumped into our streets. The correct reaction by the American people is to say that when this administration violated our laws, dumped people into our country, that those people should be removed. They were released into the United States in violation of law. There was no mechanism that the people had embraced, passed laws to do that. The administration was just unilaterally doing it unlawfully. So our position is that should be reversed. I know that's the position of Tom Homan, for example. President Trump campaigned upon it. So now you've got the usual suspects, Republicans, who are the very people who gave us the mess that is our immigration system even prior to the Biden administration. And that's something that I want to remind your listeners, Jenna. President Trump ran on building the wall in 2016. So if people think a return to the status quo prior to the Biden abuses is what we're striving for, they're crazy. We need to reverse the damage of decades of bad immigration and border security policy. We need to secure the border. We need to enforce it. H.R. 2 needs to be passed, signed into law. We need policy changes. Yes, we need to reinstate return to Mexico and the migrant protection protocols and Title 42 to stop the flow. But we need permanent reforms. Build the wall, yes, but pass the policies. And you need to deport the millions of people released in the United States, not just criminals, but people who ignored our laws, came in, got aways. How about other people, though, who were released unlawfully, regardless of whether they're sympathetic or not? It's not easy, but we need to remove people that came here illegally.
So does anyone in the Republican conference actually disagree with what you just said? Because that seems very clear that you're just following the law.
So go back a couple of decades, right? I remember when we were having these debates in the 2000s about amnesty and about border, and we couldn't get people even to want to build the wall then. Remember it was controversial during the Bush administration. President Trump campaigned on building the wall. That was in reaction to the weak Republicans who were in the hip pocket of the Chamber of Commerce, who were the people that would sit there on the border with a sign that said no trespassing, but then they would wink, wink, nod, nod, and hold another sign saying help wanted, come in here for cheap labor. And they would ignore our laws and our system and created the mess that we're in. They'd fight us when we said birthright citizenship, as it has been interpreted to mean that if you can come over here with anchor babies, you get to stay, or when you have the pressure of having people come here and they overstay their visas, oh, but they're working. And so then the entire sovereignty and rule of law is turned on its head. It is weak Republicans It is Wall Street Journal editorials. It's the Chamber of Commerce pressure. Those same Republicans today exist in our conference, exist in the Senate, and they want to push back on the notion that we campaigned on, which is we need to deport the people illegally and illegitimately released. They are not many, and I believe and hope that President Trump and the American people and the rest of us in the Republican House and in the Republican Senate will do the right thing, and then those folks will have to go along. But those same folks exist, Jenna. They've existed for a long time. We're just fortunately pushing back on it. The American people that gave us a mandate, we have to deliver.
Absolutely, and I can't wait to see what the Trump administration and the new Congress does. So what about the Democrats on the other side, and especially in the states? I mean, so just yesterday, Los Angeles City Council voted unanimously to become a sanctuary city to try to prevent President Trump's mass deportation plan. What does the federal government do if and when blue states are going to say, well, too bad, we're going to protect all of the illegals within our borders?
Well, number one, we should enforce the law throughout the country, as we are not only allowed to do, but we are actually duty-bound to do. Immigration, border security certainly has a significant federal focus and purpose, and it's literally put into the Constitution. So we have a duty to deal with it. But importantly, just to give you my short answer, is just take their money away. Just don't give any money. I mean, these states, they want their funding. It could be anything from grants for their, law enforcement or whatnot to the Department of Justice, or it could be Medicaid money or education money or anything. Just don't send them any money. Say if you're not going to follow the laws, you're going to endanger the American people with your sanctuary cities. Well, then we're not going to send you any money.
And that seems very simple. And I really hope that the Republican Congress and the majorities in both chambers have the spine and the stomach to actually do that and to force some of this change through that really is constitutional. So, I mean, this just seems really simple, but my concern overall isn't that, there isn't a pathway towards this or that Trump isn't going to try to push this, but that eventually the Republican majorities will somehow cave and the Democrats get what they want, because that seems to be usually how it goes. So hopefully with people like you and others that are standing up firmly and are willing to support President Trump in this, we'll actually see a lot of this accomplished. But I know that you have to run pretty soon, and I appreciate your time this morning, Representative Chip Roy from the great state of Texas. So one last question on this whole ridiculous non-reality bathroom nonsense. Speaker Johnson clarified yesterday his comments, just saying, a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and a man can't become a woman. How is Congress planning to deal with the stupidity of a Delaware representative who is clearly a man now running around in a dress wanting to go into the women's bathrooms?
Jenna, if we can't deal with it in Congress, if we can't be clear that a man is a man, a woman is a woman, and that, we should treat it as such, then we can't expect the rest of the country to treat it as such. We've got to stop, allowing this absurdity to be put front and center. We have real problems that we've got to deal with in this country, very real problems, including mental health, including the absurdity of what we've been doing across this country with the pressure on our young people with respect to, changing their sex. Chloe Cole has been wonderful about this, as you know, talking about it and the impacts. We've got to actually stand up for the good and the sake of our children and the mental health of the American people and say enough is enough. I will work with the speaker and we'll figure out what we need to do internally in terms of our rules and stuff. But you just need to answer the question. When this first came up yesterday, the simple question is this individual a man or a woman? This individual is a man. And society can't ignore those obvious differences and then mess with these common sense things. Like bathrooms are just simple. There's men and there's women. And whatever your biological sex is, that's what it ought to be. But, we're going to have to address it if we expect the country to do the right thing. Congress has to do the right thing.